All right, everybody, this is Jason Alba. I'm just looking over at my YouTube screen to make sure that we're streaming. There we go. We're up. All right, Jason Alba here, and this is the 5th day of my 30 days of soft skills. So the interesting thing is that I noticed that I have 30 days of soft skills, but I'm not doing the weekends. So we're going to have some reconciliation to take care of by the end of the month. So far, we've talked about a number of professional development and soft skills topics that have to do with you and your career, and they're based off of my Pluralsight courses. And what we're going to do today is talk about 2 courses. One is on your LinkedIn profile, and one is on proactive strategies on LinkedIn. Now, admittedly, these courses on Pluralsight are, they're a little dated. I think they're a few years old. So if you watch my course and then go, or either course, and then you go look at LinkedIn, it'll look different. Like it's not the same thing, but the principles are the same. And that's really how I like to put my course together, based on principles. So just before we kick off, these are the 3 principles that I want you to write down. These are my focus, and we'll talk about this again tomorrow when we talk about Career Management 2.0, which is another course that you should watch before tomorrow. So the principles that I want to talk about are, number 1, growing your network. And when I say grow your network, I'm not saying that you need to get a big network or you need to get a network that you can go brag about how many people you have. Some people, you know, after I get off stage, people come up and say, hey, I have like 4,000 people in LinkedIn. I'm doing well, right? And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, are they interesting people? Are they relevant to you? And I started to realize that relevance has to do with what I call your space. So your space is your profession, your industry, or your geography. So if you have 4,000 people that are in your industry, yeah, that's really impressive. Or 4,000 people that have a title that you have, or a title really close to yours, so that would be your profession, or 4,000 people in your geographic area or your target area, then yeah, that's impressive to me. But if there are 4,000 people that don't fit any of those, then I'm not impressed at all. So the 3 principles: grow your network, nurture individual relationships. So if you have 4,000 or 400 or 40 people, are you communicating with them? And are you doing it in a good way? There was a venture capitalist, there was an HR guy here locally that I got connected to, and you know, HR, supposedly a power connector, worked in the VC space, supposedly a power connector. Everybody knew him, everybody talked about him, and I went to him once and I was like, hey, I'm looking for some help in this area, and he totally gave me the cold shoulder. And I was like, look, you're popular and you have a lot of contacts, but you're a jerk. And so there was no relationship nurturing. And his whole big thing was, I have a lot of people in my network. And I was like, yeah, but it means nothing to me. So don't just go for the number, but go for real relationships. And the 3rd thing is to share your brand. We talked about branding. It was actually, personal branding was the very first of these in the series that we talked about. So with those things in mind, let's talk about LinkedIn. My name is Jason Snell. I'm a Pluralsight author, amongst other things. And I started out with Pluralsight because of my book called I'm on LinkedIn Now What? Please do not get that book. It's outdated. And it's been years since I've touched it. But I've spoken around the country and in Turkey and in Belgium. So I'm an international speaker about LinkedIn and career strategies and stuff like that. And this was the very first course that I did for LinkedIn. I've updated it since then, but this is where it all started. So if you want to go check out the LinkedIn courses that I have on Pluralsight, go check that out. Today's the first time that I have a guest. His name is Adam, and I want to say Frisbee. Is that pronouncing it correctly? Is it Frisbee?
Yeah, it's not French for Frisbee or anything.
Okay.
It's just like the toy.
So Adam is also a Pluralsight author, and he reached out and said he would love to be a guest on this particular topic. And so, Adam, go ahead and let us know who you are, and then we'll jump into a LinkedIn discussion.
Sure. Yeah, Adam Frisbee. I have been working in tech for a long time. I'm I'm pretty old. So I've been working in tech for, a long time and in the cloud for the last probably 10 years. And I'm a Pluralsight author as well. So I have a course called Enterprise Cloud Strategy, which I'll shamelessly plug here. But I'm also a teacher at the University of Utah. And so I get a chance to interact with a lot of students who are curious and also nervous about their career and how to build up a network during the time that they're in school, so that when they come out of school, they have a better chance of landing a career that they're interested in. And so I've done a lot of research and reading and everything else over the years about how LinkedIn can be a powerful tool for that. So that's why I wanted to jump on with Jason on this particular topic, just because it's of interest to me, and I'll have a lot of questions as well.
Okay, so and you didn't say anything about this, but can you say anything about your other employment, employers, projects?
Oh,
Courses?
I currently work at the state of Utah, where I manage a couple of the cloud teams. So I'm an engineering manager there. So I get to hire people, and so I have that perspective as well, the perspective of a hiring manager. And yes, we do stalk you on social media when you apply. We do look for you on LinkedIn, and honestly, love or hate LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn, it looks like you're a little bit out of touch. And I'll say that.
Right, right. If you have to email somebody to their Juno or AOL account because you can't find their LinkedIn profile, that could be a problem, right, as a hiring manager.
Absolutely, yeah.
I still get people who sign up on Jibberjobber with AOL accounts, and I haven't seen a Juno account for a long time, but it really shocks me to see these people who have these legacy email systems.
Hotmail is a turnoff too.
Hotmail.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome back in the day, but it brands you today. Like it as soon as a hiring manager sees like at hotmail.com, it's like, huh, especially if you're in IT. If you're in IT and you have a Hotmail or something like that, that is like, I don't know. But I hear that New Jersey's hiring COBOL programmers. So
I saw that.
Not to bust on COBOL and not to bust on people who've been in the industry for decades, but there is just, you know what, we're here to market ourselves. We really are. And in the olden days, we talked about first impression and we talked about reputation, and now we say reputation management and personal branding. It's all pretty much the same thing, but these are really simple things that we can do. So going back to the LinkedIn courses, the first course that I did was both profile optimization and strategies. And then I finally decided to just break it out. And the first course I want people to watch is your profile, because a lot of people come to me and say, you know, I'm on LinkedIn and it's not doing anything for me. And eventually, over the years, I started to get on calls, webinars for $100, where you and I could get on, share screen. We'd go through your profile, and I would walk you through from the very top to the very bottom. Here's what's good, and here's what you need to work on. And I think out of the 100 or so that I did, 1 or 2 of them didn't need help. I mean, there was opportunities to improve, but most of the rest, I would give a solid C- to F grades. Most profiles were just really skeleton. They just didn't have much. And so,
are you including me in the C-?
I didn't. Or say that again. Am I including you? I didn't look.
Are you including me in the C- grade?
No, I didn't look at yours, but I can pull it up real quick. I do want to walk through some of the things that I talk about, but I go in depth on the on the LinkedIn Optimize Your Profile course. Adam, what, as a hiring manager or consulting to your students, what are the main things that you tell them to do for their profile? I have a list of stuff that I always talk about, but what are your main things that you tell people to do for their profile?
Yeah, well, I liked what you said about the skeleton. Upgrade from the skeleton. It's really easy to start a LinkedIn profile and then not do anything with it. So I always tell students, like, I think it's also easy to get overwhelmed with what you can do with it. So I always tell students you can keep it simple, but still keep it effective. And the first thing you should do is make sure you have an appropriate headline and summary. Like those are the two first things that I think any employer, anybody looking at your LinkedIn profile, look at. And if it clearly looks like you haven't put any thought into those two things, I think that's a huge turnoff.
Okay, so headline is the thing right under your name, right?
Yes.
And then the summary is the about area, right? Yeah. So those are the two of the main areas you're talking about.
Right. Okay. And I realize that it's hard to talk about yourself sometimes. So it can take some practice, but also you don't have to be overwhelmed. I think you can make a fairly simple but effective summary without going into too much detail, at least at first.
Yeah.
After that, honestly, for me this is just a personal thing. I really kind of don't care that much about any jobs that are past your first one or two. So I don't think it's necessary. This is just my personal opinion. I don't think it's necessary to like list jobs from 10 years ago or further back. I don't think people actually scroll down that far, but I will look at the other sections like skills and publications. If you have any courses you've done that you're proud of, certifications, those are important things as well.
Okay, cool. I like how you preface that with this is a personal thing. I think one of the most important things that we need to think about with LinkedIn is there are two audiences. There is the LinkedIn engine and logic audience, which is like the SEO. Like if I go into LinkedIn and in the search box and I type something up, what's going to show up? Like, am I going to show up on the front page? Am I going to show up in the first couple, 2 or 3 results? And so I talk in my course about writing your profile in such a way that you can show up higher in the results because you understand how the search engine optimization works in LinkedIn's logic. The other audience is okay, and so that changes, right? Over the years, the logic of what's important and what to put where and how many times has changed. The other audience is the human, right? And so sometimes you're going to get a hiring manager, somebody like Adam who is helping other people, and they're going to have ideas and thoughts and opinions based on their experience. And then you're going to have recruiters who say, oh, well, this is how I do it, and so everybody should do it this way. There's so many aspects of how humans decide what's important and what to put in, that you're not going to hit them all. You're not going to hit them all. You're going to have some people who are like, oh, this is the most important thing that you should do, and other people are like, well, I never look at your skills. I don't think that I just don't get that far. I'm really big on stories, and so in the profile course, I talk a lot about how to create an about page that reads less like something that a marketer put together that's kind of cold and bland and cliche and jargony, which is what a lot of us tend to do, and instead focus on creating stories that we can tell. And I give the example of Reader's Digest. When I was a kid, my parents had Reader's Digest magazines all over the place, and I loved picking them up because you could literally sit down and find a 10 or a 15-minute story that was really interesting and very well written and be engaged, and then you're done. Like, it's not like you were committed to this long book. And so I talk about how to create mini stories and use those mini stories in the about section as well as all of the jobs. Now, Adam says, what he looks at is the first 2 jobs. And as a human, I agree with that. The only thing I look at after the first 2 jobs, because I usually don't read the description, because most of the time people pull out of their resume and they paste in. And so that's just, I don't like reading that. I think it's sloppy and just, cliche-ish. It becomes meaningless. What I do look at after the first 2 jobs is a history of your job titles. So if I'm looking at somebody with a technology background or a sales background or something like that, I want to see how long you've been in tech or how long you've been in sales, because if you have 4 years experience, that's different than if you have like 25 years in 6 different companies or industries. And that's interesting to me. I want to know that you're bringing in ideas from sales from different sizes of companies and industries and sales roles and stuff like that.
So would you say it's a it's a bad thing to have worked for one company for your whole career? I know that's rare these days, but you know, our parents did that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My parents and my in-laws actually had one employer, and now they have a thing called a pension. Well, guess what? We don't have pensions anymore, and we don't. Nobody works for one company anymore. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. The way that I would put that on your LinkedIn profile, though, is I would have each job be a separate thing, so that you could say, you know, let's say 20 years ago, let's say I've been at the same company for 20 years or 10 years or whatever, and I could show that the first 2 years I was in this capacity, and then after that I worked for, you know, 3 years in this capacity, and then the next 3 years in this capacity. And the important thing there is that you're telling your story. You're helping people see how your role and what you did grew and evolved, right? And so that's where the stories come in. Okay, so let me explain oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's a good idea to not copy directly from your resume, like you said, but put a little kind of 1 or 2 sentence thing, blurb, I guess, at the beginning of your each job that says like, you know, I joined this company because of this and this, or this company recruited me because of this, and this is how I helped them. And I think that adds to like the whole narrative of your whole career path.
Yeah, yeah. And what I love about what you just said, this company recruited me for this and this. You could say, I'm an amazing whatever. Like, write that out. Like, just write on, I am amazing at this. Okay. How different is that message than saying, I was recruited at this company because of my track record of this? You're saying the same thing. You're saying it in 2 different ways. One way, you're saying, I'm awesome, and I know I'm awesome. The other way is, they say I'm awesome, and that's why they hired me. What a different message that sends. What do you recommend? You say you tell people to do their, it used to be called a professional headline right below your name, and then the about summary. What do you recommend people put in their summary?
So I have a few things that and again, these are just sort of my opinions, but what I found effective when I look at other people's summaries as well. And I'll say that it's okay to use like first person pronouns. You don't have to be really sort of robotic. And in fact, I don't like reading robotic summaries. So I use personal pronouns, and it's your chance to sort of show your personality, because this isn't your resume. It's kind of your billboard on the internet. And so I really believe in showing your personality. And with that in mind, also don't use third person. So I know some people say use third person because it's good for SEO, like when people search your name. But I just don't agree with that, because it just makes you sound like you've hired somebody else to write your LinkedIn profile for you, but it should be yours. That's my main thing. And I really think showing personality, and then it's still okay to say like, here's what I specialize in, or here's what some key accomplishments are. But I really think you should start out with a few sentences of really sort of what your story is. Mm-hmm. And for the headline, there are 2 schools of thought really that I've come across on that. And one school of thought is it should be an actual job title, because when people are searching for specific job titles, then you'll come up. But the one I kind of like better is, is to, again, have some personality. Put in there what you do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a job title. Like mine says something like cloud and DevOps leader, university instructor. So it's simple. It's not a job title, because job titles are often boring and also inaccurate too. So that's kind of my thought on that.
I think I saw a job title from Microsoft that was 3 lines long. I could be wrong, but I remember from years ago, somebody showed me this job title that was so jargony, and they had it on their profile, and I was like, what is this? Like, maybe this means something in your organization, but for humans, most of us that are reading this, this is, I can't even consume this. I don't understand what this is. Yeah, I agree on the professional headline. Could be a job title. I tell people to kind of make that your 10-minute or your 5-second, not 10 minutes, 5 or 10-second elevator pitch, or what some people call your bumper sticker, your personal brand bumper sticker. Sometimes a job title really does it justice if it's a job title that is understood by a lot of people. But one thing I want people to think about is and here's one of my phrases, your resume. I heard this from a resume writer, and I'll transfer it to profiles. Your resume is not your obituary. Okay, so a lot of times people treat a resume as this, here are all the things that I've done in the past, and here's why you need to understand I could be at your organization. And what they do is they say, I've done A, B, and C, and then you should figure out on your own that I can do D at your company. And the problem is people, I say that people are mentally lazy. Don't tell me the A, B, and C and make me figure out what D is. Just tell me that you can do D, right? And so that's one aspect. Same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Your profile is not your obituary. It's not this list of amazing stuff you have done. It's not backwards facing, it's forward facing. It's a marketing document that helps people understand why they should bring you into their team, right? And so with that in mind, even if you don't have a particular title right now, maybe even if you've never had the title. So for example, maybe a logical progression in your career would be CIO or a CTO. You can put CIO or CTO ethically in your LinkedIn profile. You wouldn't say this is my title, but you could say that I have done CTO duties or responsibility. I fulfilled CTO duties or responsibilities, or something like that. So something that I'll tell people to do. Let's take your idea of taking not job titles, but really close to job titles, right? So maybe the job functions and putting them in there in your actual. We're going to go down a little bit to the actual job that you've had. When you put your real title in there, or whatever you want to put in, for search engines, you can put in parentheses, you can put something like similar to CIO.
Yeah,
and so that way you get the CIO in there.
I'm 100% on board with that. And in fact, I also tell or recommend to students that you can also do that on your actual resume too, because I work in government and job titles haven't changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
For those of you who work in government, you know this. And so they're often not even accurate. And so it's important to know that you can do that. So let me ask you a question, Jason, and sorry to interrupt your monologue.
Oh, good.
Somebody who's searching for a job, I often advise students to say it's okay to put in your headline available or in search of. What are your views on that?
I've heard both ways. So back in the olden days, when I first started this whole LinkedIn journey, I heard and I was a proponent of not really going there, but since it's a forward-facing marketing document, to say, here's what I do, here's my specialties, here's what I bring to the table, and not put anything about your status. And sometimes status makes you look desperate, especially if the rest of your profile is not very good. But I think if you have a really decent profile, it's okay to let people know that you're open to opportunities. I don't think there's a problem with that, especially nowadays. The world's different than it was 10 or 20 years ago when we had things such as job security and we had things like tenure and stuff like that. Nowadays, everybody knows it. Like every 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to be at a different company. And it's not bad like it used to be. Okay, so that's kind of where I started out from, and talking about that with career coaches and recruiters over the years. There's different ideas on that. LinkedIn actually has way down towards the bottom, there's like this status where you can say I'm available or I'm not looking or something like that. I never really cared for that because I think most people didn't ever look at that. But here's what I heard from a resume writer out of Australia. Hi, Gail. Gail, her husband, she put this on Facebook. Her husband went into job search, and he immediately posted somewhere, probably on LinkedIn or Facebook, that he was in transition. And because he let people know, his network came out of the woodwork to say, hey, here's how I can help you. Here's what I can offer you. And it was an awesome example of raising your hand and saying, hey, I have this situation right now, and here's how you can help me. If he didn't say that, nobody would have come out with opportunities, right?
Yeah,
And so
a lot of people, sorry, a lot of people that I've talked to are not necessarily okay saying I need help, but we need to get to a place where we are okay with that. And
yeah.
in my experience, most people who are able to help you are very much willing to help you. It's almost an altruistic thing.
But they don't know until and unless you let them know, they don't know that they can help you. And so I'm okay with giving your status up above. I would definitely like to make sure that you have some of the foundational parts of your LinkedIn profile strong, so that when they see your status, that's not like the main thing that jumps out. Like, they're seeing your value proposition first. Let me just walk through a few things, and then Adam, I'm going to walk you through an exercise the way that I do.
Okay.
This is going to be good.
Grade after this?
Oh, you're going to enjoy this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm just looking at the top of the profile. I call this the above the fold, because back in the old days we had a newspaper, right? And the newspaper was folded in half, and what you saw on the top, which was above the fold, was like the really big important stuff, and then below that was below the fold, which was not as important as above the fold. So when you first come to a LinkedIn profile, what you see is above the fold. Okay, so you got your picture, you got your name, your professional headline, and then a little bit down below you have the summary or the about area. I would like you to get a good picture. And I'm not talking to you, Adam. I actually haven't seen your profile, but a lot of pictures. Your picture's awesome. All right,
yeah.
Sweet. So
you're supposed to say that you're awesome, right?
Yeah, well, I'll tell when we go into the mini stories, which is you and I are going to do an exercise of creating a mini story for you. I'm going to tell you how I really like people to convey that you're awesome.
Oh, okay.
The two biggest problems I see with profile pictures, and this applies everywhere online, is one, sometimes the head part of the picture is too small. So if you have a picture from the waist up, your head is going to be like eensy weensy in some of the pictures. I'm looking at my profile on LinkedIn, and on the right hand side it says people also viewed, and there's these pictures are like less than an inch in diameter, and so if it's a headshot with a close up of your head, I get to see that, right? But if it's from the waist up, or worse, I saw a picture of a lady in front of an oak tree. Like, I saw the whole oak tree, and then she looked like a little line, and I was going to meet her for lunch, and I was like, I have no idea who I'm looking for at the restaurant. I mean, if she brought her tree with her, I would know, but I don't know any characteristics of her physically that I should be looking for.
Now, this was pre-pandemic, right?
Oh yeah, this was okay. Yeah, I don't do lunches anymore. So, but I'm really hungry and I can't wait to go eat at a restaurant. So the other thing that I normally pick out in a profile picture is the contrast between you and whatever your background is. So I've seen very super busy, crazy backgrounds, like what you would see at like a buffet, like almost in Vegas, like a neon-y, too much color, too much going on. Or I've seen pictures where you don't stand out enough from whatever background is very bland, or the same color of your skin or whatever. And so get something that looks good. You probably have a friend who can take a really good, decent, doesn't have to be amazing, but just a decent picture of you. Below that, if you go to my profile, you see that I have my name. So Jason Alba, comma, product manager. And there's a very specific reason for that. It's because the name is, I think, the most important thing in LinkedIn search engine algorithms. And so when I put product manager in there, that adds validity or juice for the phrase product manager for my profile. I talk more about that in the LinkedIn course. Below that is—
can I interject one thing when
Yeah.
you're talking about names? And again, my personal opinion, get rid of the postnominals. Nobody knows what they mean and nobody cares, and they make you look insufferable. Even if you have an MBA, even if you have a PhD, I don't put postnominals. That's just my thing, but I would advise
Yeah.
against.
Okay, I generally agree with that with some exceptions. I think that something like a PMP might be important. So I have an MBA, but I don't put that, I don't know if I have that anywhere on my LinkedIn profile because nobody cares that I have an MBA. They don't care what my undergraduate was in. But if you're a project manager and you're working, for example, in the defense industry, having a PMP certification is really important, okay? PHP means nothing to me. Well, it means stuff to me, but it's not positive stuff that I'm going to be like, oh, wow, that's so impressive. But if you are in a space that really respects the PhD, or for example, if you're in nursing, whatever your certifications or credentials are, those are really important. So my counter to what you just said is, generally I agree with you, but if your audience really cares about those certifications or designations, then it's okay to put them in.
Well, it's your second principle about being relevant to your audience. So yeah, that's I totally agree with that.
Most of the time when I see that, it's alphabet soup. Like realtors will put stuff in and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this stuff means. And so it's just a bunch of gobbledygook. And to your point, really, and I think why you bring this up is because putting things like that in creates what I call mental friction. So I'm looking at this whole thing as a whole, and I'm getting stuck on this alphabet soup, and it's like, I don't need to, I want to reduce the amount of mental friction in my brand messaging. And so if it's not relevant, leave it off or put it somewhere else. And you said you looked at the publications. Maybe the publications is a great place to kind of go into some of those and talk about that, just not up at the top.
Yeah, and so for me, just to talk about the publications, it doesn't have to be that you're published in like a scientific journal. I put some for mine. I put some guest blog posts that I did for Udemy, for example. I think you can do that kind of stuff, and it's totally fine.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so let's go down to the about section. So, and then we're going to switch over. Once we're done with this little exercise, we're going to switch over to proactive strategies, because most of the time when I consult with someone on a LinkedIn profile, this is the extent of the changes that people need to make. And the cool thing is, in the about section, what we're doing in the about section is pretty much the same strategy that we'll do in all of the employment sections. Okay, so the jobs that you had, as well as the about section, gets 2,000 characters. You get 2,000 characters, not 2,000 words. It's 2,000 characters, which is about 1 page of Word document. And this is where I want you to help me understand who you are. I want it to be written in an engaging way. So don't copy from your resume, because that's not engaging at all. You can post your resume on your profile page as a document, and it shows up towards the top, and that's fine. I'm totally cool with that. But I want, as a human, I want to be able to read through your about and the job stuff without having to feel like I need to take some headache medicine, right? So what I really like to do, and I talk a lot about this in the course, so you can go deeper there. I want you to tell these stories. I call them mini stories, and they're based on characteristics. Okay, so Adam, you're going to think over the next minute or so while I'm talking, you're going to think about something that you want to be known for, or something that you are known for that people will say, oh yeah, Adam's totally like that, and that's part of your brand. Okay, now let me tie this back to what we were talking about earlier. Because your LinkedIn profile is a forward-facing marketing document, make sure that this characteristic, whatever this characteristic is supportive of the role that you're looking for. Okay, so if I want to be a CIO, I need to make sure that I have excellent communication skills. I can talk I can talk about vision and strategy. I can do operations. I can do management. I can manage a team, right? Management stuff. I can do leadership stuff. So just there, I've talked about communication, vision, operational effectiveness, management, and one or two other things. Those are characteristics that I want to pop out of my LinkedIn profile, and now I'm going to communicate that. So a poor way of saying it is, I am an excellent, okay, Adam, let's switch over to you. What is a characteristic that you would like to profess or to say you would like people to know about you?
Let's say one of the things I want people to know about me is that I have a real passion for DevOps. And so, and this isn't how my LinkedIn profile is now, but if it were, I would include things that are DevOpsy, like I would tell stories or narratives about my openness, collaboration, how I am a big proponent of education and experimentation, taking feedback and things like that. Those are all at the core of what DevOps is. But I definitely wouldn't say like I am an amazing, experienced DevOps practitioner. I would let my LinkedIn story tell that, but I would never directly say that because that makes you sound, again, like somebody
little
that
pompous.
Don't want to work with.
So let's start with this big DevOps umbrella, and you've listed a few specific characteristics that would make you successful in a DevOps role, okay? And so one of the characteristics that just popped out to me is collaboration. So the old-fashioned way and a not optimized way of saying that is, I am a really good collaborator. I'm a really good collaborator. And when I read that, I'm like, okay, Adam says he's a really good collaborator. I want some teeth into that. And so there's two ways that we're going to put teeth into it. One is through a formula, and then the other is how we say I am, okay? So in the formula is really just a par statement, problem, action, results. And so what you're going to say is, and we're going to pause real quick on the first part of this. You make your statement, right? So I am excellent at DevOps, okay? That's okay. I don't love it because I distrust when people say they're awesome or the expert at something. There's a certain level of distrust there. But if you were to say something like, in my company, I'm known as a top collaborator. People say, managers that I've reported to know me as an excellent collaborator. Isn't that interesting? I could say I'm an excellent collaborator, but when you say people that I work with say that I'm an excellent collaborator, you're still saying excellent collaborator, but who's saying it makes the world of difference, right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make the claim, and the way that I would like you to frame that is not saying I am awesome. I want you to say people say I'm awesome, or people know me as awesome, or something like that. And you can say my customers say this, or my I hate the word subordinate, but I'm at a loss to find another word. My team says this, my leadership says this, the executive team says this, right? So that's the first thing I want to do, is I want to frame it in a way that you're not saying it about yourself, but you're letting other people say it about you. Now, just let me keep on this pause real quick. The other one thing I would like you to do, if you've gotten recommendations from people, is go down to the very bottom of your profile, look for the recommendations section, and highlight these things that people are saying about you. Not the whole recommendation, but highlight the characteristics. So if somebody says, you know, Adam is one of the best people that I've been able to collaborate with. Well, now you can say, I mean, in an interview, you can say, yeah, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see people saying in my recommendations that I am a good collaborator, right? So there's just a lot of power in how you frame what your awesomeness is, and I think that is an awesome way to frame it. So with that in mind, let's get into the formula. So Adam the strength is collaboration, and the formula is problem, action, result. And so what you would do is you would say, and think about this, because I want you to actually give me one. Give me an example, a problem where you had to collaborate, right, what it is that you did and what the result was. So I'm putting you in the hot seat for real. Was there ever a time that you really had to use your collaboration skills to help your team or a project move forward?
There have been lots of times. I'm just trying to think of the specific one. And one
Without
I can
naming
think
names, right?
no, yeah, exactly. If any coworkers are watching, just, but one I can think of right now is that I think it was last year, we were trying to put a product together, and the product required expertise from a bunch of different, not a bunch, but a few different diverse teams, some of which were not my team. So, because I managed some of the cloud teams, we needed some of the cloud teams expertise, but we also needed project management expertise. And so I had to collaborate with the project management teams to try to get a good project manager as part of this sort of product team to build and maintain this product. And it turns out that where I work, sometimes there are silos that are built. And so you have to sort of break down those silos. Yeah, is that the problem statement?
Okay, so you've identified your problem, which you could say opportunity, right? So problem, and then what you did was you worked with what you knew and what you had, and then you pulled in the right people from other places that you didn't have authority over, and
Right.
and then the last part of that would be, as as a result, we were able to. And what you did was you just brainstormed off the cuff. What I want people to do is sit down and write down 5 to 7 characteristics. So collaboration would be one of them, and then start like mind mapping or brainstorming. Here's an example, and here's an example, and here's an example, and here's an example. And then what you do is you come up with about one sentence for each of the PAR, right? So here's the problem. You set the foundation. You tell the story. You paint the situation. Here's what I did, the action, and then here's what the result was. And this mini story should be about 3 or 4 lines in Word, and you'll have enough space on your summary and all of your jobs to have about 5 to 7 of these mini stories. I'll take it one step further. I was talking to a career expert in Dallas, Texas, and she'd been doing this type of stuff for a long time. And we were talking about PAR statements, and she said, there's one more part to this. And this actually goes to the A, B, C, D that I was talking about earlier. She says, so tell people, I'm well known in my industry or my company as being a great collaborator. For example, there was a situation where we had to do this, and here's what I did, and here's what the result was. The last part that she brought to the table, which was really quite brilliant, was, and this is actually probably more applicable and important in an interview than it is to put on your LinkedIn profile, but you could put it on a LinkedIn profile. She said, the last part is to say, and what this means for your company is I can do this and this and this. And so remember how I was saying before, we give people the A, B, and C, and we hope that they figure out the D. She was saying, tell them what that D is. Tell them what the result is. Tell them how this applies to them. And so that's the mini story part, and it really puts a lot of teeth into your LinkedIn profile and helps me tell the story. Now, Adam works a lot with students at the university, and so a lot of these people have, like, I don't know, 0 years of experience. But if they think about what the jobs are that they're shooting for, they can actually think about, the characteristics that would help them. For example, collaboration. You don't have to have been in a professional capacity to be a good collaborator or a communicator or visionary or any of that stuff. And so they are at a prime place where they can pull from their high school years or family or community experiences and talk about some of those characteristics and come up with mini stories that really make their profile look fleshed out, right?
And students really sometimes hate this, but it's why we emphasize group work at the university.
Yes, as a former student, I did hate group work.
Well, it's because people like us tend to carry the whole group, and that happens. But also, that's kind of that's resume fodder, right?
It
Or
really is.
LinkedIn fodder.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Okay, so this is we've talked a lot about your profile. Once again, go into the Pluralsight library, free for the month of April in 2020. If you're watching this after April, you can reach out to me, reach out to Adam, and we could probably hook you up with some 30-day passes. Or any Pluralsight author should be able to hook you up with a 30-day pass. The next thing I want to talk about, and we only have really not much time, but we'll talk about proactive things to do on LinkedIn. So let me go back to 20 or 30 minutes ago when I said people say, hey, I'm on LinkedIn, but it doesn't work. It's not doing anything for me. I'm not getting anything out of it. It's because they treated it kind of like Monster, where they, you put your resume up on Monster and then you just hope that recruiters and hiring managers are going to call you. Whereas on LinkedIn, now you're in a database of hundreds of millions of people. And I don't know how to say this, but like, you're not that special. It's not like you put your stuff up and all of a sudden you're going to get this huge barrage of hiring people that are
but I have
approaching.
17 Postnominals after my name. Are you serious?
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be important to have all that stuff and the credentials and the work and stuff like that, but especially now, I'm on some recruiter groups right now, and what I'm hearing about is, I actually just saw something on Facebook of people putting together lists of recruiters who have been laid off in the last couple of weeks because there's no work. There's no work if there's no hiring, then there's no work for recruiters, and they're standing in the unemployment lines like everybody else. And so, but even back in a good economy, I had people come to me and say, I put my stuff out on LinkedIn and nothing's happening and I'm not getting anything. And so this is where I want to go back to: grow your network with relevant people, nurture relationships. And as you do those things, if you do them well, then you should be sharing your brand as you do it. Your brand is in your professional headline, which is that little tagline right under your name, right? So on the right-hand side of a profile, I see, the person's profile. And then on the right-hand side, I see people also viewed. And what does it show? It shows their picture. Remember, you want to have a close-up of a headshot. It shows their name. And then below that, it shows their professional headline. That's why that professional headline is so important. And Adam talked about not necessarily using your title. You could use your title, but if it's jargony, I would put more of a value proposition. And so these three things, the name, the picture, and the professional headline, become what I call your mini profile, because you see this on LinkedIn in various places. You see it on the homepage in the feed, you see it in groups, you see it in the people also viewed. I'm not going to see the rest of the profile until I actually click down into that profile, but immediately the thing that jumps out is hopefully a well done picture and then that professional headline, which is what your value proposition is. Okay, so having that branding in place, what can we do proactively on LinkedIn? Adam, do you do anything, or do you recommend proactive actions that you, students, friends could do on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and this is what I tell students too. Those Zen gardens where you're like raking the sand and stuff? Yeah, you always have to take care of your LinkedIn. It's like your little very own Zen garden. I've been a little bit lax lately, but I usually try to log in once a day and like some articles or comment on some articles. But also, more important than that, I think, is, you talked about it earlier, seeing who in your network you could possibly help. For me, nourishing a network is not what you can take, it's what you can give. And by default, by being altruistic like that, you'll get a lot of value and you'll be able to grow your network just simply by helping people. I just want to say I've had like 3 or 4 people just yesterday. Sorry, I'm looking back and forth at my profile. I've had 3 or 4 people just yesterday because I released a free coupon for one of my courses, unlimited, whatever. And 3 or 4 people just reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I was able to pass the interview or whatever for this particular product. And your course really helped me with that. And that's what it's all about for me. That is what it's all about. And so really focus on what you can give.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. When I started Jibber Jobber back in 2006, I had zero money, but I had a lot of time. And LinkedIn wasn't as big as it is now, but the blogosphere was really big. And so I started blogging, and I've blogged a lot since 2006. And I found that blogging has been some of the best networking and branding exercises that I've ever done. And I tell people they should blog, and people are like, yeah, it's a great idea, but nobody wants to commit to a long-term blog. On LinkedIn, you have essentially your own personal blog, and you don't have to maintain it. You don't have to, the technology of it. You don't have to update the software or anything like that. You don't have to worry about bugs and viruses and spammers and all that jazz. You basically have an opportunity to go in and write what LinkedIn calls articles. So right at the very, on the home page, at the very top, it says start a post. And that's like what you would do on Facebook or what you would do on Twitter. But right below it says write an article. And what I would recommend is to start writing articles that are based around your expertise. So for example, we're in April. What Adam could write is something like 5 things, actually we're in the middle of the pandemic. So 5 things that government agencies should know about cloud computing during a pandemic, or to prepare for the next pandemic, or as a leader, because Adam's a manager and a leader, 5 things that every leader should do to prepare for the next shift in how we work, right? Because I'm assuming that as a manager, you've had to communicate and lead differently over the last few weeks than you have ever had to do in your whole career.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that. That's good.
That's an excellent article that, you know, the leader one, that example is not necessarily talking about your expertise in IT or cloud or anything like that, but it is positioning you, it's branding you as a leader and a manager who cares about your team and the effectiveness of running your team, right? And so if you and I were to sit down and talk about, you know, what articles you could and should come up with, I bet within an hour time of brainstorming, I could give you 2 or 3 years of topics that you could write about. And once again, you could do this on your own blog, which I'm a fan of, but LinkedIn is just as fine also. One of the most, what's that?
Too. I said you can cross post too.
Yep, cross post if there are other industry forums that are important or where your audience is, then go cross post them there. Sometimes I'll write a blog post and I'll share it out on LinkedIn and I'll share it out on Medium. I'll just copy and paste it over to Medium. So there's a lot of opportunities there. One of the things I love about writing articles on LinkedIn, and this goes into the idea of cross posting, if you write an article on LinkedIn and you get like 5 or 10 people that view it, you have written probably something decent, but you failed to market it out, right? And I am a firm believer of nobody's going to come even if you do build it, you know, as opposed to the move that they will come. I don't believe that. I think you need to build stuff and you need to draw people and you need to invite them to come. And so one of the most important things that you should do in LinkedIn proactively, and I'm going to end with this, and then Adam, you can share any final parting thoughts. One of the most important things you should do on LinkedIn proactively is to write articles that position you however you need and want to be branded, and then share those articles in groups. And so after you're done writing an article, there's a couple clicks that you can do to share it on in various places, including groups that you're a member of. So the strategy includes writing stuff. Okay, you got to write your stuff. Joining groups. You should be joining. You can join up to 50 groups that are in your space. Remember, we talked about space being your profession, industry, and geography. So join groups, and then go back to the articles that you've written and share those articles in those groups, because if it's relevant to those groups, then they should be interested in that. And that's one way you can expand your brand outside of your own network into people who are relevant to you. So there's a lot more proactive.
Jason will retweet you. Jason will retweet you if you ask him, right?
Absolutely. I love sharing good stuff. I'm totally good to share stuff. So, actually, Dan, I have on my list today, Dan Appleman, he's another Pluralsight author, super great thinker. He wrote a really good article on LinkedIn talking about the difference of upskilling, which is taking what you know and learning more, and side skilling. Oh, my camera's wrong. Side skilling, where I have these expertises. Let's see my camera here. I have these expertises, and I can learn more about each of those. But maybe I should add more, right? More side skills. So I'm going to go share that article with my network today because I think it's great thought leadership for Dan, and it helps him. But it also positions me as somebody who finds excellent content and shares that out. So those are just some ideas on proactive strategies, but there's a lot more in the proactive strategies course on LinkedIn. Adam, do you have any parting words for people about LinkedIn or really anything that we've talked about?
I think it would be super fun if you critiqued my LinkedIn profile in the last 5 minutes and if you were totally brutal.
Okay.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm a critiquer and honest. So let me see if I can share the screen the way I want to. Give me just a second. Share screen is easy with 2 monitors, blah, 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 blah. Don't show share screen. All right, I got Twitter, I have 3 monitors. Here we go. There we go. Hey, that's pretty cool. I think I'm gonna like this StreamYard thing. Okay, so we'll just start at the top here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. That's good. All right, so I love the picture because it looks like this is at from the Capitol building, and you're looking out at the Salt Lake, what is it called, city, the skyline, which I know is not as impressive as some other places, but this is our city, right? So
it's way better than Denver.
Better than Denver's. So I really like this. You're not at the very top. I'm not sure why I got the pillars here because you don't say anything about the government, but once I scroll down, I can see you're at the state of Utah. So that's like, oh, okay, that's where it ties in. So yeah, I really like this. A lot of people might not have some awesome artwork to put on the top, and so they leave it blank or they leave it default. And one of my favorite websites to go to grab artwork is Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S. And I think that my Twitter and LinkedIn header both come from Pexels. And so there's some beautiful stuff there that you can use royalty free. Your picture is great. The only thing I might do is zoom in just a little bit more on your picture because, let's see if we have, let's see, that got pushed down. I'm not seeing the people also viewed here. Well, down here in the recommendations, you can see how small these get. And both of these people have done a pretty decent job of getting close up, but you'll notice that Lucy's is, her head is less than 50% of of how high this image is. And so just zooming in a little bit more really does make a difference when the picture's smaller. Let's see, you got your name, cloud and DevOps leader, university instructor. I'm cool with that. You got your little cloud there, so that's cool. I like that. Let's jump into the about. I'm a senior technology leader, educator, researcher, practitioner, specializing in cloud and DevOps. I've led technology strategy initiatives and teams in diverse domains as convention, tourism, healthcare, manufacturer. I'm proudly part of the IS faculty, lifelong student. I grew up around snow industry, brightest minds. Okay, I don't hate this. I would say this is average. I would say this is normal stuff. And you're not necessarily looking for something, like you're not positioning yourself to look for something. So this would not be a turnoff to me at all. Nothing's really jumping out at me, except if I were a recruiter, hiring manager, or looking for a partner, except that you have that you're a senior technology leader. So that says something to me. If we were to go back and implement some of the things that I've talked about with the mini stories, because you have a lot of space here, you haven't used your 2,000 characters. I would try and figure out what maybe 3 or 4 major characteristics are. Like, you are a visionary, you are, well, I love strategy and vision. So maybe that's too frou-frou for some people, but that's something that I really want to talk about, is creating and implementing strategy and vision. And then I would put my mini story, my PAR statement behind that. So, you know, whether it's your communication skills, your ability to work with diverse teams, which everybody who thinks about government thinks that they don't work well with each other, right? Think about law enforcement agencies that don't want to share data. And so that's kind of a brand or a stereotype that you have as a government worker, that I would say, I love collaborating with different teams and pulling different teams together for a single purpose. That's something that would be like, oh, this guy's an out of the box thinker. Like, he's not the typical government worker that, you know, is not going to fit well in private industry or something like that. So I would like to see, you know, maybe not 5 to 7 mini stories, but 3 or 4 that really bring out some of those special characteristics that you want to bring out. I usually, what's that?
I'm taking notes.
Good. I would usually skip over the activity part, but if I'm interested in you as a hiring manager, or whatever reason I'm really trying to dig into this, I am going to see what you are, what you're commenting on, and what you're sharing, and what you're creating. So if nothing else, continue to share things and comment on things that are relevant to your brand or relevant to your space. Now, notice here it says love it. This was your comment, was love it. You might, for next time you comment, put in some context in here so that I can, you know, you could say, you know, as a cloud, as someone who works in the cloud, or however you phrase that, but just put a little bit in there so that instead of me just saying love it, I'm kind of inclined to go see what you love, but I'm really don't have enough time to do that, right? So putting in a little bit more context. I know you need to think a little more about that, but it is valuable because this is towards the top of your profile, really. All right, so here we have Senior Engineering Manager, Cloud Data, Salesforce. I love all that because I doubt that this is your title. Is this your title, your official title?
Oh, no.
Not even close, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you're putting in all these things, because these are all things that if you were looking for a job would be important for that. So let's see what your story is here. Helping, this looks like it's out of your resume. Helping the great state of Utah plan, design, and implement enterprise cloud strategy. Built and led the enterprise cloud architecture team, and the enterprise Salesforce team led the enterprise data services team. I would put in more meat about, I don't know what you can put or can't put in about technologies, but at a high level, I would like to see AWS or Azure or whatever to put some meat in. Not only will that help me understand if I'm looking for a certain specialty, but it helps for search engine optimization. And if you're an AWS expert, which is for those of you out of the cloud, that's a cloud thing. If you're an AWS expert, I would put AWS up here because, and I talk about this in my LinkedIn profile course, the title is one of the most important things that LinkedIn considers for their search engine optimization. So you can put AWS in a bunch in the description, but as far as their algorithm goes, that's not as important as having it here in the title, okay? So I would just go through honestly and just flesh these out some more, put in some more buzzwordy things, put in some, you know, the cool thing is as a manager, as a technician, okay, and a manager, you're gonna have some different stories and characteristics than you would have as an instructor. So as an instructor, one of the things that really appeals to me is that I can put you in front of a room, right? I can't put all managers or all technicians in front of a room to teach customers or people or team members or whatever, but I know you have classroom time as an instructor, and I'm assuming that you're probably pretty good. Do you, what's that website where,
Rate My
Rate
Professor?
My Professor? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have an awesome score on that.
So I would put that in here. I really would, because part of your brand is people like me as an instructor. Like, I communicate well. I can take very complex concepts and help newbies understand it, or I can help 400 level seniors understand and go to the next level. And that's stuff that I would personally put in your LinkedIn profile. Once again, you're letting your students, you're letting other people talk about why you're awesome, right?
And you don't have to go through all these.
No, it's good. I love this stuff. I could do this stuff all day long. So I like this, but I don't like it. I love that you have these here. And by the way, are these in your publications?
No. I only put written stuff in my publications.
I think, I'm pretty sure I put my courses in my publications. It's not updated, but I put my course in my publications. But so here's, okay, this goes to the heart of some of the stuff that we've been talking about. So I currently teach 3 courses on Pluralsight. Doesn't really tell me a lot. I'm trying to figure out how I would really communicate that. First of all, as you know, Adam was telling me earlier, the first time he tried to become a Pluralsight author, he was rejected. There's a very stringent process to go through before they allow you to become a Pluralsight author. Luckily, I got in before it was stringent, so I'm still a Pluralsight author, but somehow what I want you to communicate is the prestige that comes with being a Pluralsight author, and the expertise that you have to have in order to have authored some of these courses. So I'm not sure exactly how I would word this for you, but I would take this statement of I do this and really blow it up into, here's what this means. Like, this is kind of a big deal. You know, I have these courses and I teach this stuff. Like, what I can see here is you have cloud data, and I didn't know what Splunk was before we talked. So this is also a data thing. So you could say something like, I mean, I'm not going to rephrase the whole thing, but because I think the whole thing needs to be rephrased. But if I were to jump in real quick, I would say I currently teach 3 courses, or I have Pluralsight courses that specialize in cloud computing, strategy, and data. But I don't want to say just data. I want to give paint more of a picture about the data. Okay, so I would really go deeper into this Pluralsight thing to position you as an expert in these areas, and an expert that's been vetted to be a Pluralsight author. So let's see, down here below, I got your recommendations. You have received 11, and I'm not going to critique these, but like I said, I want people to go in, and what I tell them is copy and paste it into a Word document, and you can either print it out and highlight it, or you can go into your Word document or your Google Shared Doc or whatever and highlight it there. But in your recommendations, you typically have some really good meat that will help you create those mini stories and figure out what people are saying about you.
And let me just add one thing here. The best way I've found, if you want to get recommendations, is to give them. So notice I have more given than received, and I'm pretty proud of that, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good way. My only footnote to that is, if you give a recommendation, don't hold grudges if they don't reciprocate. So anyways, let's wrap it up. Adam, thank you for your thoughts. I think you've added a lot. Let me see if I can unshare my screen here. Stop sharing. There we go. All right, we're back. So thank you for joining us. You know, like I said, LinkedIn is kind of where I got started when I was first starting Jibber Jobber. About a year and a half later, I came out with my LinkedIn book, and then I got on the road and spoke at a lot of conferences and schools and job clubs. Did a lot of webinars. And then that just kind of positioned me to be the LinkedIn person at Pluralsight, which was an honor, and it was awesome to be invited to do that. I love LinkedIn as a tool for our careers. I love the ability that we have to network, to grow our networks, to nurture relationships, and to share our brands. I don't love everything about LinkedIn. I've actually had a bad relationship with all the changes and the things that they do and why they do things, but they offer us a wonderful tool that we can use in our careers. And so I invite you to get more serious about what you're doing on LinkedIn and prepare for your own career management. Right now, everybody's really getting kicked in the teeth with career challenges and career problems because of this pandemic. And hopefully, within weeks or months, we're going to start to see things get back to normal and hiring is going to pick up again. But who's to say that in 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 years, it's not going to happen again? I want you to be serious about your career. So tomorrow, we're talking about my course, Career Management 2.0. This is the course. This is the topic that I got on the road and talked the most about, is my favorite one. So go check that out, Career Management 2.0 on Pluralsight. And then we'll talk about it tomorrow morning. Adam, thank you so much, and we will see you. You're on Twitter, right? So what's your Twitter handle?
Adam_Frisbee. There's an imposter, Adam Frisbee. He's not me. I'm the underscore.
Imposter. All right, so underscore. Adam Frisbee with an underscore. Thank you, and we will see y'all next time.
Thank you.